It is Monday, I think, Tuesday morning, and I was just sitting and thinking about a few things, and I saw in the tabloids recently that KeKe Palmer started talking about having PCOS, and it really tugged my heart because I was also diagnosed with PCOS in 2019, the end of 2019, into this year. And it's so crazy because prior to it happening, I had never been diagnosed with it before. I had never had the symptoms of PCOS prior to that. It was just really, it was a really interesting time frame in my life. And what I realized is there's not a lot of understanding of PCOS, and it can be disheartening when you try to express yourself to people who don't know anything about it or have not experienced it or encountered it. So for those of you who don't know what PCOS is, it's basically polycystic ovarian syndrome. It's where your body overproduces certain hormones, and then there is like ramifications and different things that happen by way of that. So for me, it started with the facial hair growth, and then also the ridiculously heavy cycles, and the weight gain. I have probably gained in the last year close to 30 to 40 pounds. And my reason for like recording this today, honestly, is to talk about the fact that there are so many other things that happen by way of PCOS that we don't even realize, and some people can be very insensitive. So my hope is that after you watch this video, you will be more compassionate towards people who may be going through things that don't outwardly show all the time, or that don't outwardly make sense, but are still very much a battle. So for me, gaining so much weight in such a short period of time has really affected my body. I ended up having to have a hysterectomy in March of this year by way of what my doctors are saying was the fault of PCOS, but that's a completely different story. And it really jacked me up. I'm on a weight loss journey right now, and the reason that I haven't started making content for that is because it's really overwhelming. There are some days where, you know, I feel good about my journey, I feel good about my process, I feel encouraged, and then there are some days where I go to do my weigh-in progress and it just hits even harder of how much harder I have to work than most people to lose weight. Somebody who's at my current weight, it usually is not that hard for them to lose weight just by getting active, changing eating habits, things of that nature. That's not the case when you have PCOS. You have to work your behind off, and even still, if your hormonal imbalance is too bad, it's a possibility that won't work. And there's still a possibility that you might still struggle to lose weight even after making drastic dietary changes. That has been my encounter. Working out like crazy multiple times a day, weightlifting. Oh, and then that's another thing, they tell you like, oh, you know, you can't, weightlifting is better if you have PCOS versus doing cardio. Like, it's so many ins and outs and odds and ends, and it's just, it could be very, very overwhelming. But also just the emotional side of it, the mental side of it. Nobody wants to be gaining weight at a rapid rate in a way that's not healthy to their body. So it can also really suck when you have family members or friends, you know, who make reference to you getting quarantined thick, but it's actually a really miserable season for you because you don't desire to be going through that. So really, I just want people to be more compassionate, not just about PCOS, but just about different things that you may not know of that people are still very much affected by, you know? I commend KeKe Palmer for coming out and saying what she has said about PCOS and being honest about it. I used to be somebody who had 100% clear skin. I never broke out, thank God. That just wasn't, something that I experienced. I really never had acne. In middle school, I can count maybe 3 pimples that I had. I was not a very acne prone girl. And so since being diagnosed with PCOS and the way that they try to combat PCOS sometimes with the excessive amount of hormones really backfires on you. Because you do start to experience things like weight gain. You do experience facial hair. You do experience more breakouts, and just different things like that. And that's just the visible things to the eye. There's so many things that you experience internally. And I don't think that I ever really heard a conversation about grief and PCOS. And that's a current journey that I'm currently walking through. And something that I also deal with in therapy is the grief behind in PCOS, as well as the grief of me having to have a hysterectomy. But again, that's a different video. But there is an amount of grief that comes with it. Because some of us are proactively fighting to conquer PCOS. And it can just be overwhelming. It really can. To get on the scale and have eaten one bad thing, y'all. Like anybody with PCOS can attest to this. To eat one thing that you're not supposed to eat and get on the scale next morning and gain 3 pounds. And I'm not talking about, you drink water before you went to bed. I'm talking about gaining a legit 3 pounds because your body cannot break down or process like the sugars and things and the carbs that you're eating. That is mentally exhausting. So yeah, I just commend her for coming out and talking about it, and I hope that there are more conversations about PCOS. And hopefully if anybody has any questions, you can drop them down in the comments. Maybe this shed some light. Maybe this is just a rant. Maybe this is just y'all seeing me in a different capacity. But I will also plug this in here. You can very much be a believer of Jesus and seek out therapy. I wholeheartedly believe that God and therapy go hand in hand. I'm a firm believer in God and therapy. I had tried to navigate my ups and downs with PCOS on my own. And I don't mean on my own like referring to prayer. I just mean to like the emotional, the mental. I had tried to navigate that like however I thought was best. And so then I began to commit it to prayer, and I just started talking to God about it, and I started asking him, what should I eat? Lead me in the direction of somebody who's giving me good information. What things should I take? What should I not take? So I started going to therapy. And like I said, they just gave me practical ways to navigate the hard spaces, what I could do to, help myself through that. Giving myself grace was a big takeaway from therapy. And granted, I've learned about grace in the church and in my relationship with God, but I don't know why in this one aspect I was just so unforgiving and so just not gracious to myself in that season. So yeah, this is a conversation I would definitely like to talk about more when I do my hysterectomy video. I think that it will shed some more light, but I'm gonna wait and do that after Vlogmas. But this was just something that I do in the morning. I sit, I look out the window, I just kind of let some sunlight come into my house. And I use that time to pray and talk to God and, really encourage myself. This is just something I do sometimes where I just sit around and I talk and just encourage myself. And I just believe that God has blessed me to be a person that people listen to and do receive from. And I wholeheartedly believe in transparency saves lives. It's like really my slogan for life. I believe when you are transparent and you share your testimonies and you share your stories, that people can get free. people can get free, they can find understanding, they can find wisdom, encouragement, hand in hand with their relationship with God. Because I don't try to be anybody's, I don't want to be an idol, I don't want to be, I'm not trying to be anybody's God. I just like to be a supporting hand and a helping hand, a supportive friend, and a listening ear, as well as one who's not afraid to share my testimony in order for somebody else to come out. So I just want to say thank you guys for tuning in to this little chit chat, my morning thoughts with me, and I hope that you had a great day. If your day is just now starting, I hope that you have a great day, and I just pray God's blessings over you. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll catch you guys on the